there are some things like you were saying, some of these soft skills, some of these character traits that I think people in the industry are looking for to hire. And like you said, it's kind of a tough time right now in the industry. It's hard to find a good job, and it's a little bit of an imbalance in the supply and demand maybe, but what do you think hiring managers, what do you think people in the industry are looking for in like creatives right now?
Yeah, I think the winds are really shifting. So, for wider context, I mean, we all experienced the craziest market bull run, and it lasted like a decade. Like, it lasted for a good amount of time. And it's weird to, I think, grow up in that and not see anything else. So you kind of expect the world to continue, like the status quo is always up and to the right. And then
Right.
all of a sudden last year we have like a real pull from the market. It's like, hey, all of a sudden we're bears. And that, I think that whiplash, it's like all of these companies are learning like, oh, money isn't free anymore. I don't know if anyone's like a market nerd, but essentially that's what it is. It's like, money is no longer interest free. So we actually have to care about how we spend it and how we hire, and how that impacts, like, these like macro trends, how that impacts an actual company is like, as the CEO, you're like, well, we don't have unlimited runway for unlimited growth. We actually have to pull back and take a look at how much revenue we're making and how much profit per head we have. So there's a lot of companies that are saying, okay, let's be a little bit more particular about the type of people we hire. So I'm just giving that as like wider
Yeah.
market context, and then how that impacts how they look at someone they're hiring. It's like, well, you don't have unlimited budget anymore, so you have one role, and you know what projects you need to push out, or you're all trying to figure it out, and that's like key. So you need someone that, number one, you can't babysit them, you can't sit beside them, you don't have the time because you're trying to flip your company to a profitable company. Let's say they haven't made a profit in a really long time, which was the case for a lot of these companies. And so now they're like, okay, we actually have to build products that are revenue driven, or actually grow with, revenue in mind, which we weren't doing. We were growing with users and other KPIs. And so they're looking for designers who aren't scared of working by themselves and are a little bit have a little bit more initiative and have a little bit more balls to get out there and be like, I think we should try this, let's test it, let's see if it's like doable, if it'll bring in revenue. Like, we need that type of personality now in this market. And I'm seeing there's still a lot of hiring going on, but what they're doing is, just instead of four spots of people that have kind of like a whole bunch of skills, they're narrowing it down to, okay, we have one spot, and here's exactly what we need to hit, because this is
Right.
what we need to like bring in revenue.
Yeah. I think also, like, you pointed something out that was really interesting. Like some of the things on, let's say, like job descriptions, maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago, that were kind of just like, you'd read the same soft skills or same character traits on every job description, like self-starter, like good communicator, like willing to take charge, like, and everybody would just read those and go, yeah, 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 we get that. That's just a bunch of job description speak. But now, like when you write those, like when you read those and you're looking for a job, you're going, oh man, this is serious. Because like you said, they are specifically saying it must be this person. Like this person must be able to be a self-starter. And if you don't know what that looks like, if you don't know what it looks like to communicate well or self-start, I feel like you can't treat job applications or descriptions now like you did 5 years ago, because they're very, very pointed.
Yeah, that's a great insight. As you were saying that, I was like reflecting on the jobs. I used to just ignore job descriptions.
Right.
I was just like, what is this?
As long as the
And
title said designer, I was like,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, me. I was like, that's me. But now I'm seeing, and I even wrote a couple last week, right? I'm even seeing like very particular notes about the type of personality and the type of project you'll be working on. So you're thinking about, like, when you think about the hiring manager that wrote that, they have a very distinct list of projects that you're going to be on for the next year or two, and they're making a bet on you that you're going to return like for those projects. And so they have to, they're kind of looking for sure bets almost. So the more particular they are about these skills, the more they're like, I have to know that you can fill this role, and I have like, the more particular I could be, maybe the more like the better candidates I'm going to get in return.
Yeah, that word assurance is such a, I think it could be like a scary word, but and maybe it's just because I'm weird and my brain works this way. Like I also see it like, as like opportunity. So like the question that starts forming in my mind is like, what advice would you give, product designers, like young designers who are looking to break in the industry? How do they communicate that assurance? How do they show that differentiator and stand out? What do you think about that?
That's a hard one. I talked about it in this my now defunct triple course, but it's about having conviction and giving them conviction. And I think that changes depending on the individual you're talking about. So this is where soft skills really come into play, like your ability to read the room and read the person that you're talking to, because they don't always communicate that. They don't always tell you this is exactly what I'm looking for, but it's actually okay for you to even ask. Like, hey, listen, I also don't want to waste my time. Like, what are you looking for? What type of traits? How would you measure that, or how would you perceive that? Like, if I was to like show you this case study, would that register for you? Like, does that matter? And I've gone in and asked prior to an interview, what do you want to see? I have a bunch of work. I can tailor it to you. And I've actually had like I had a really great interviewing experience with blank company, and I had asked the hiring manager, hey, what do you want? Do you want like a casual interview? Do you want me to come up with a presentation? And she had been such a great, I mean, it's a good sign of a hiring manager. She said to me, you're going to be presenting in front of 3 to 4 people here. They are looking for XYZ. I want it in a slide deck, and they will likely not ask you questions while you talk. And so what that says to me is like she wants a formal presentation. She wants me to structure my talk in a specific way so that by the end of the conversation everyone knows the same thing. Because in a casual conversation you don't get that, right?
Right.
And then I've gotten like different hiring managers like, okay, like I don't want the presentation. I want to get to know you as a person, and we can vet your product work offline. I don't need to do that like in person. So what they're looking for is like a personality fit. They're probably looking at the personalities of their entire team and seeing, okay, like what's the person that's really just gonna like level up everyone, and what does that personality look like? So they're looking for like a perfect fit in a puzzle piece. So you can get a real like read on what people want by just simply asking.